Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Football Toolkit presents, in conjunction with 360sportsnetwork.com, the Pigskin Blink, your daily look at fantasy football, the NFL, starts, sits, injury reports, studs, duds, and everything else to help make your fantasy football team sizzle like a little bit of bacon. This weekend saw a lot of great games and, well, a lot of piss-poor performances. Let's get it started in Buffalo as Buffalo routs the Kansas City Chiefs 35-17. Castle 300 yards on the day, 2 touchdowns. Hillis 66 yards on the ground, and Bo finishes with 102 yards in the air with two touchdowns. Fitzpatrick on the other side of the ball, 10 for 19, 178, and 2 touchdowns. CJ Spiller keeps it going. 15 carries, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Right now, putting him at 292 yards on the season. 5 receptions for 72 yards on the season. 1 fumble on the season, but that's not too bad. You know, CJ Spiller, I don't know if the Bills are going to be able to keep this up, but, you know, if you have him for the first couple weeks, I'm pretty much guaranteeing that you have 2 wins your first couple of weeks. Also, Steve Johnson, 2 receptions, 56 yards, and 1 touch for the Bills. In Cincinnati, the Bengals top off the Browns 34-27. For Cleveland, Whedon finishes 26-37, 322, and 2 touchdowns. Richardson, you know, I think that he's going to be, like I thought at the beginning of the year, an undervalued, underestimated kind of running back. 19 carries for 109 yards, 1 touchdown on the ground, bringing his totals up to 148 on the year. The touchdown, and, you know, his receptions, they're 5. Didn't have the great first game, but the thing is he's putting together 19 touches, 20 touches. If he can get that up a little bit more, you're probably going to see a little bit more yardage. And for a rookie, that ain't bad. Dalton on the other side of the ball finishes the game 24-31 for 318, 3 touchdowns. Green Ellis on the ground, 21 carries, 75 yards, no end zone appearances. And we got Brandon Tate, 3 receptions, 71 yards, and 1 touchdown. The Vikings come into Indianapolis hoping to keep that strength, that deadly vision alive to tackle the Packers at the end of the season, and it fades away as they lose 20-23. Andrew Luck, 20 of 31, 224, 2 touchdowns. You know, Luck and RG3, those 2 quarterbacks, you could take either one mid to late, and you're going to see dividends pay off. Brown on the ground, Donald Brown, 16 carries, 45 yards, and no touchdowns. And Donnie Avery, 9 receptions for 111 yards and no touchdowns. On the other side of the ball, Ponder, 27 of 35 for 245 and 2 touchdowns. Peterson on the ground, 16 carries, 60 yards, no touchdowns. And Harvin still not finding the end zone. 12 receptions for 104 yards and no happy dances. The Raiders come into the Dolphins hoping to get their first win of the season, and doesn't happen as they lose 35-13. Palmer throwing 24-48, only 50% completion rate. That's terrible for fantasy numbers. 373 yards in the air and 1 touchdown. McFadden on the ground, only averaging a lowly 2 yards a carry, 11 carries, 22 yards, no touchdowns. And Myers in the air, 6 receptions, 86 yards, and no touchdowns. Tannehill, 18 of 30 for 200 yards and 1 touchdown. That's not bad, but then we got to look at a pretty huge game for Reggie Bush. 26 carries, 172, and two touchdowns. I know that his first game, it wasn't all gravy and happiness as he pulled in 14 carries for 69 yards. No touchdowns, but he also had 6 receptions for 46 yards. I mean, this puts him at, you know, he's a top 5 quarterback. I mean, top 5 running back in points per reception kind of leagues. You know, he's going to keep those points up as I think Tannehill starts to really get in his groove. He might pass a little bit more, find a little bit more deeper routes, but this is the Raiders right now, and they're not doing too good as far as the secondary goes. So the dump-off options are going to probably grow, and you might see Bush have these kind of games as the season goes on. The Cardinals with the upset of the week as they toppled the New England Patriots 20-18. Called 15 of 27, 140 yards, and 1 touchdown. Wells on the ground, not too much, 14 carries for 44 yards and no touchdowns. He also had Heap, 5 receptions, 62 yards. 6 points ain't bad for a tight end. He's got to find the end zone a lot more often, though, if he really wants to be in the top 10 for fantasy football tight ends. Brady in the air, 28 of 46, really trying to make it get done. 316, only one touchdown. Ridley on the ground, 18 carries, 71 yards. And Walker, 5 receptions for 95 yards. That's still 9 points, people. Don't worry too much about that offense. It'll snap back, believe you me. The Buccaneers come into Giants Stadium hoping for the win and not getting it. Just barely coming out as the Giants put up 25 points in the fourth quarter to topple them, 41-34. Josh Freeman, 15 of 28, 243 and 2 touchdowns. Pretty decent fantasy numbers. Doug Martin, 20 carries, 66 yards, 1 touchdown. Pretty decent fantasy numbers. But Vincent Jackson, 5 receptions, 128 and 1 touchdown. I thought he was going to have a big game, and sure enough, he definitely paid his dividends off, much like Eli Manning owners are smiling happy even with the loss. 510 yards for 3 touchdowns. Massive, massive points. Andre Brown on the ground, 13 carries, 71 yards and 1 touchdown. And Akeem Nicks in the air. Big time in the air. 10 receptions, 199 yards, and 1 touchdown. Almost 26 points in standard scoring leagues. Pretty massive. Big controversy game as the Ravens come into the Eagles, hoping to further their AFC North lead. And they just didn't get it done, and I think it was the officials. I hate the Ravens as much as any other Steeler fan, but I think that was a touchdown. Not worthy of them just settling for a field goal. Flacco, 22, 42, 232, and 1 touchdown. Vic, 23 of 32, 371 yards and only 1 touchdown. I thought that it'd be a low kind of scoring game as far as the air went. McCoy for Philadelphia, 25 carries, 81 yards and 1 touchdown. Selleck in the air, really getting the job done for Vic. 8 receptions, 157 yards. On the ground for Baltimore, Rice, 16 carries, a lot that were broken open, but none for the end zone, 99 yards. And what can I say about bounce back games? New Orleans might be somebody that we could always hope for a bounce-back game. I know I was. I was thinking that definitely you would see Lance Moore with some massive receiving numbers after the game was done. I thought that you would see any of the wide receivers really bounce out. However, it was all running backs. PT and Sproles just controlled both facets of the ground and the air game. It just wasn't enough as the Saints go down and are now 0-2. 27-35 against the Panthers. Drew Brees finishes 31-49, 325 yards and 1 touchdown. Pierre Thomas, the cruiser, 9 carries for 110 yards. That's right, 9 carries for 110 yards. Darren Sproles, 13 receptions, 128. He's a big-time running back if you are in a PPR. If he's available, I'd probably trade for him, but whoever has him is not going to be stupid enough to let him go. Cam Newton for Carolina is the top rusher as well as the top passer. 14 22, 53, 1 touchdown in the air. On the ground, 13 carries, 71 yards, and 1 touchdown. Steve Smith in the air, 3 receptions, 104 yards, not finding the end zone. The Texans go to 2-0 as they quash the Jacksonville Jaguars, 27-7. Schaub, 26-35, 195, no touchdowns. Foster, 28 carries for 110 with 1 touch. And Owen Daniels, 6 receptions for 47 yards. Gabbert on the other side of the ball, 7 of 19 for 53 yards and 1 touchdown. Jones-Drew, 12 carries for only 60 yards. And Laurent Robinson. Oh, I'm so sorry that you stole the money and you're having such a bad year. Yeah, I don't like him right now. 3 receptions for 49 yards and for the end zone. The Redskins just miss beating out the Rams. Both teams finishing 1-1 at the end of week 2. RG3 keeps it going, 20 of 29 for 206 and 1 touchdown, along with 1 touchdown on the ground. Morris, who I think is a phenom, and you need to pick him up if he's on the waiver wire, 16 carries, 89 yards, no touchdowns. Leonard Hankerson, 2 receptions, 68 yards, 1 touchdown. Your leading receiver for Washington on the other side of the ball. Bradford gets it done, 26 of 35, 310, 3 touchdowns. Darrell Richardson, 15 carries, 83 yards, no touches. And Amendola, 15 receptions, 160 yards, and 1 touchdown. Some pretty interesting stats for receivers while this is in the year 2012 and not 2004. Dallas Cowboys come into the Seahawks hoping to get a win, especially on the backs of such an immense amount of offensive targets. Don't quite get it done as they lose to the Seahawks 27-7. Romo 23 of 40, 251, 1 touchdown. Murray 12 carries for only 44 yards. And Austin finishes the day 5 receptions, 63 yards, and 1 touchdown. On the other side of the ball, Russell Wilson passes for 15 of 20. Great numbers until you look at his yardage and touchdowns, 151 yards and 1 touchdown. Lynch does it on the day, 26 carries, 122 for 1 touchdown. And McCoy in the air, Anthony McCoy, remember this is Seattle, 5 receptions, 41 yards and 1 touchdown. Jets come into Pittsburgh and lose 10-27 on the back of Pittsburgh actually learning how to play defense and offense. Sanchez finishes the day 10 of 27, 138 and 1 touchdown. Powell on the ground, 9 carries for only 33 yards. And Jeremy Curley, leading receiver for the Jets with only 67 yards. Roethlisberger on the day, 24 of 31 for 275, 2 touchdowns. Dwyer, the leading rusher, 12 carries for only 28 yards. And Brown, the leading receiver, 7 receptions for 79 yards. The Titans lose to the Chargers, and the Chargers go 2-0 in their division, 38-10. Phillip Rivers, 24 for 32 on the day, 284 yards, 3 touchdowns. Battle on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns, 69 yards on the ground. And Floyd, 6 receptions for 109 yards and no touches. Locker for Tennessee, the leading rusher and the leading passer, which is pretty sad. 2 carries, 21 yards. 15 of 30 passing, 174 yards and 1 touchdown. Stevens in the air, only 1 reception for 46 yards. Last night, Detroit loses to 49ers as the 49ers go 2-0 on the season, 27-19. Alex Smith with the bloody nose. Yes, NFL officials, I don't care where you're officiating at, if you're an even fan of the NFL, when a quarterback slides and gets a forearm into the face mask and he comes up bloody, that's probably warranting some type of flag. Finishes the day 20 of 31 for 226 and 2 touchdowns. Frank Gore gets it done on the ground, 89 yards, 1 touchdown. And Vernon Davis, the quickest man on their team, 5 receptions, 73 yards for 2 touchdowns. And I thought that this was going to be a shootout. I thought this was going to be in the 40s for both teams, but both teams' defenses kind of showed up and kept they kept the score pretty low. Stafford only gets 1 touchdown on the day for 230 yards. Kevin Smith on the ground, 16 carries for only 53 yards. And Megatron, 8 receptions for 94 yards. Tonight, looking ahead, the Broncos come into Atlanta, hoping to destroy Matty Ice's chances of finishing Week 2 2-0. Both teams, both 1-0 is what I'm expecting tonight. I'm expecting much of the same numbers. I think you're probably looking at a final score of the Broncos maybe 35-ish, 38-ish. Falcons coming out on top because I think the Falcons just have more weapons. Manning's a smarter quarterback, but Ryan has he has a rapport with his receivers, and hopefully they can get some type of rushing game done besides your quarterback rushing headfirst in for a touchdown. I think that Matt Ryan is probably the safer play. You're probably going to look for him to have at least 25, 26 receptions, 350 plus yards for 3 touchdowns, if not more. Jones is going to be once again the leading receiver. You look for him to have between 5 and 7 receptions, probably a good solid 100 yards receiving, and I think he's going to find the end zone at least once, but I think that Ryan's going to spread it around a lot more often. Manning probably is going to finish the week 250 yards, 275 yards, a couple touchdowns. Demaryius Thomas is probably going to be the leading receiver once again, except he's going to have more receptions this game. Look for him to probably have in the neighborhood of 8. He might even have close to 130 yards. I don't know if he's going to find the end zone, though. I don't think that he's going to be the one. I think that Denver's going to score more on the short game. Atlanta's going to score more on the long game. And that's it for me for Monday, September 17th of 2012. You can check out this broadcast as well as every other broadcast at fantasyfootballtoolkit.com as well as 360sportsnetwork.com. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, anything under the sun that you want to send me that is actually legal and appropriate, thank you, Brett Favre. Send it to lostcause@fantasyfootballtoolkit.com. Later, everybody.